I try to write fat, so my whole goal is write as much as you possibly can that's in your head and make sure it's written down. Don't say, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. No, no. Do it. Write it
Do
down.
it, yeah.
I don't care how ugly it is that you write, but write it down, and then put it away. Maybe tomorrow, the next day, or in 3 hours, you can go back to it and clean it up.
Some experts chase attention, but the smart ones build authority. You're listening to the Authority on Demand podcast, where credibility becomes your competitive advantage. Every week, we're pulling back the curtain on how founders and leaders turn expertise into inbound demand through books that position, media that converse, and strategies that actually move the needle. I'm Danielle Hutchinson, your host and Chief Creative Officer at Authority on Demand. Now, let's turn your authority into leverage.
So there's a moment that comes for a lot of people, usually somewhere around the year 20 or 25 of their career, when they stop and think, is this it? Is this what I signed up for? But for most people, that moment passes, they go back to work. But for some, that moment becomes a question. And for even fewer, that question becomes a mission. Mike Wysocki has that moment after 30 years in corporate America. But instead of just going through that crisis, he did something unusual. He started interviewing people. Not just anyone, but people who've been in their careers long enough to know what they were talking about. This book we're going to be talking about today outlines this for us. The Careers by the People book. It's an inspiration, a book all about stories about people who are on a mission to change lives, including their own. And Mike is the perfect guy to talk to about how he's changed everything he had with these stories. So without further ado, Mike, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Danielle. I appreciate it and appreciate your time and having the opportunity to speak about myself and my book and, my passions and where I'm going and where I've been.
Hey, real quick before we jump back in, if you're loving what we're doing here, hit that subscribe button and drop us a like. We're bringing you the best authors, the most real conversations, and all the writing wisdom that you didn't know you needed. So stick around because it only gets better from here. All right, now let's get back to the conversation.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you're on. I think you have a lot to chat about. You definitely had quite the history. And, speaking of where you've been and where you're going, let's start with that. I mean, you're first generation student who wasn't very strong in high school or college, but then you went throughout all these different careers and it's been an amazing journey. So tell me a little bit about that path and how you led to where you are now.
Yeah, so I mean, we can go back from day one, but basically what it was, yeah, I was an average to below average student in high school. I was from, low income area, they call it working class or whatever. And, just mudded my way through school. So I ended up after high school deciding what do you want to do with yourself? And I ended up getting into college. You'll like this one though. I didn't. It's a good one for you. I, the college my career counselor at high school told me to go to didn't even exist. At Boston State, it's like it was a foregone college. So it just shows you the bad information I got. So yeah, when I just got into college, and I figured you go out there, get a college degree, and from there, you'll find a great job, and the rest will be history. Because we didn't know anything, I had no idea. So that's how my career started. And what happened was after school, I didn't prep myself for corporate America, the workforce. So I bounced around Boston and then said, you know what? If I'm going to keep failing at opportunities, I might as well go to Los Angeles. And so that's what I did. And I went west and, was in tech sales and did okay in there, moved up the ladder, but it just like, oh God, awful. Yeah.
Right, right. Well, then, hey, I mean, it really shows that you've been through a bunch. You've kind of seen all different sides of the industries that you've been in too. And, here you are now able to kind of take away your experiences and the experiences of others, and you meshed it into a book for us all to learn from. So I'm curious to know then, when was that moment you decided, hey, let me start gathering advice and putting it into a book? Was there a certain catalyst?
Yeah, well, it was many catalysts really, because the fact is, it's when I always explain to the students I speak to, I go when it comes to Sunday, and if you're dreading Monday, there's an issue. And for
Mm,
me, Sundays was to a certain point when it started getting dark out. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to be back at work on Monday morning, and I'm not having any joy and any pleasure. And plus, being in high pressure sales isn't, I mean, it's great for a couple of years because you learn a great deal and, your confidence goes out of control. But the sad thing about it is it's the pressure. It's very stressful. So because of that, just like, what else is there? Is there something else to do? How can I figure out a way out of this? And a lot of people I know in high-end tech sales was in the same way. They're like, you know what? Got to get myself out of this situation. And so it's
Mhm.
slowly built up over time. But the funny thing was, what catches you though, is because when you get a big commission check, you're like, oh, the job's great. And, but then a few days later, you're like, okay, I'm back into this god awful selling scenario of trying to hustle, client, not hustle, but trying to go out there and find new business and sell and, push constantly. It's a tiresome game, and make sure you hit your numbers and your sales numbers. It's not a joyous career.
Right, exactly. So I guess we'll have to ask ourselves that, like, am I enjoying where I am right now? Do I need to make a change? And your book clearly helps people, helps walk people through that process. So amazing. And clearly what you've done here is helping so many people. I mean, it's been praised by Forbes, for listening rather than lecturing. So that's super inspiring. That must feel really good to know that you've been able to influence so many lives. Would you say that's sort of the benefit of this? And has it inspired you to continue on? Have you considered maybe, another book that has even more stories or anything like that?
Yeah, a lot of great questions here. Let me see if I can knock them all off. One,
Sure,
yeah,
sure.
does it help out people? It extremely does because it gets so many responses back and forth. I mean, this is one lady who published a book on careers over in England, something different. And I'm like, oh, congratulations. I see her on LinkedIn. And she's like, oh my God, all I want to be is Mike Wysocki of England. I'm like, whoa, that's kind of a different compliment. But here's the whole process is when I decided to go out there and determined to get something done to help the next generation, because I knew that my time, to get this project done and to try to get the word out and try to help, my
Right.
time ended. So I can help the next generation because I've been through the workforce, the industry world. And so, how can I help the next generation understand about career choice? And so what I did was I just came up with these questions about the day in the life of what's it like to be a fill in the blank CEO, actuary, accountant, all of that. And I bombarded them with 20 plus questions. And the people started filling them out, but you got to understand it's just not randomly filling it out. I was requesting and talking to people, calling, associations, organizations. Hey, can you get an accountant to fill this out, a CPA or an attorney, all of this. So I was doing a lot of back work to try to get people to fill out these questionnaires about their careers. So that's part one of the book. 102 careers broken down into the RISAC themes, John Holland's occupational themes, which, 6 chapters basically, by the way, enterprise down to the workers, all of that stuff, real basic. But in the intro and the conclusion, I talk about how I should have prepared for the workforce because I didn't. And I give all these different suggestions and ideas of how to prepare yourself when you're younger, 15 to 25. So when you go out into the workforce, you are prepared to get into an occupation and a career that actually you enjoy. And so that's what happened. So I put them all together and then he started lining up the endorsements. And it's amazing. I mean, Harvard, Stanford, UMass, BU, Northeastern, all the top schools, as well as people from industry. And
Mhm.
then the awards started popping. I applied for awards and I got a few. So yeah, so it's been an amazing journey, but the real high is speaking to students in school. So high schools,
Right.
colleges, community colleges. It's truly amazing. I mean, I just ask them some basic questions. What's the percentage? How many of you guys on LinkedIn, and how many of you have ever, the occupation you're going into, have you ever shadowed anybody in that occupation? And it's truly amazing because they're paying for school or they're going to school. And yet what's basic for myself, because I've been in industry for so long, I mean, I have to remember they're 20 years old roughly. So they don't know a lot of like what's happening and how to prepare. And so I try to get that all my knowledge and bring it down to them as much as I possibly can.
Understood. And, I love the way that when you're talking, I could just hear this like excitement in your voice, this passion. It goes to show how much this means to you and how much you've dedicated into this project, which is just incredible. And I think a lot of authors can learn from that because you need to find a topic and a project that you're passionate about. And I like that you mentioned it's kind of like a high talking to these students. Well, you've also said that writing and getting published is a high too. So I'm wondering, like, what about the creative process excites you?
Well, the thing about it
Exactly.
is, yeah, there's a lot of angles to it. It's so
Yeah.
a couple things is it's not just writing in general, getting things done. Because I mean, if you ask me, you go, "Hey, can you write a book on healthcare?" I'd be like, "No," because I'd be falling asleep by page one. It doesn't
Right.
interest me. I always tell people, I go, "I stay very healthy, so I don't have to learn about health." But the point is, yeah, once you and that because and it's great that you're doing a podcast about writing because it's I don't know, it's a vague term in a sense because a lot of people they think it just naturally happens and it's a process and you have to stick with it because when I talk to some people and they see it, they see the passion I have for career readiness, but it's not
Right.
an exciting topic for a lot of people. People want to talk about what's happening, what's new, what's cool, like funny hats or cool shirts. I mean, career preparation, that's, you're going to work in industry for 40 years, how to prepare for that properly and do all these steps. I mean, it's a lot of homework and it's pretty intense. And so a lot of people just try to hope they fall into it, which is just gibberish. But to answer your question, to go back to one and come back to the next one is I'm also working on my second book. And the second book basically is instead of me saying how I should have prepared, I reached out to students throughout the country and asked them how they're preparing 30 plus questions. So to get a 20-year-old to fill out 30 plus questions and work with them to try to determine how they're prepared for the workforce. I mean, that was really like pulling teeth because in the first book is really my issues, what I should have done. So I'm just getting it out of my head. The next one
Right.
is going after students out there, and which is great that I got a bunch of them, but a lot of them, I'm sure, is like when they started reading the questions, they were either horrified or horrified because they were
Mm,
so in depth and so clear and concise. But to answer your question about the writing process, wow, here's the thing about it is, as you mentioned, the high. And so as I think about how it all occurred, because when I was in school, it didn't, and that's the thing about it is, I wasn't one of the students who was like, a straight A student in writing and English. I was so bad at writing or English classes that when I applied to college, remember, I was in a high school, it was a lot of social promotion. So we could sit in class and just space out and get a D. Don't act up, get a D. And I'm like, okay, I'll take the D anytime. I could pass on to 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. So we didn't have to think or do anything. It was all it was like more like a social high school. We talked more about what we were doing on the weekends and hanging out and all like that.
right.
So education wasn't a topic. Then when I go into college, it changed because I barely got into college. I don't know how I did, but I did. I went to UMass Boston starting off, and I was we had to take these tests for math and English. And with math, it was pretty almost easy for me. So I'm like, I get into math 101, so that's fine. But in English, I don't get into English 101. It's 010. And I'm like, what's 010? And they go, that's the class before English 101. And I'm like, what are you saying? And they go, well, you kind of didn't pass. I go, what? Okay, you
Wow.
didn't pass your writing class, your writing test. So I ended up in this introductory to writing, introductory to English class. And you got to understand is I'm there with a lot of other people from, the inner city, foreign countries. And the teacher, who by the way is Eleanor Walks, and I can't remember what I did, last year, but I can remember exactly what this teacher did. She's like, and she did it perfectly. She's like, hey, we got you're writing samples. Would you ever be interested in like, improving on them? Or like, she said it in such a kind and nice way. And
Right.
it wasn't combative because I would have fought against it. But she's like, we can actually, if you're really interested, we can help you learn how to write. I'm like, what do you mean? Am I writing that bad? She goes, no, it's fine, but you need to tweak it up. And I'm like, okay. She goes, work with my teaching assistant. And that guy changed my world because he taught me exactly how to write sentences, paragraphs, all of that, and put it into a cohesive argument. And I didn't learn any of this, but I didn't learn all like the technical rules. I just learned the basic understanding of how to deal with it. And so it was great because it was myself and this other kid, and he was from South Boston, but he actually came from Beirut, a foreign country. And so from there, I learned how to write
Mhm.
properly, And then after that, you get published in letters to the editor, which you see name and press, so you get high off that. And so from there, it just expands and expands over years. So that's how it all starts.
Yeah, well, geez, I thank you for walking me through all that. I think that first off, that listeners have a ton to learn from your journey, and it's clear that you've not only refined your process along the way, but listened to others and learned from mistakes and setbacks. So there you go. That's perfect. I love all of that. And again, it's clear that you just have that like that glow about you when you talk about the book. So it's incredible. I'm wondering actually, now that you've discussed all this, is there a certain part of the book or story or as you may call it, that stands out above the others, or one that might be your favorite?
Oh, you mean the people that did the questionnaires?
Oh, of course, yeah, going back to Careers by the People, yeah.
Yeah. Well, the one is it's funny because as because you have to understand when you do a book, you have to edit it sideways, then you gotta get professional editors. So you read the people's careers over and over. I
Uh,
mean, it's some of the more like guys that was in like a rock band. Of course, he loves his job. He's like, I can do it all day long, and I can do it, when I'm off the clock. Whereas, like, you get CEOs and executives, and they're like, I've worked so hard to make it this high in my career, that I don't want to ever move down the ladder. And so you see that a lot. Another one too is the people that take the most unchallenging careers out there. They just take, oh, I just took a job, and you can see that they're totally miserable. One lady, and I had to edit her 3 or 4 times, and every time I was laughing, and she was like bashing and bashing what she was doing. She really despised it, but she could have been a comedy writer because her responses were hysterical, and you're just sitting there laughing because it's so funny. But the ones that stuck out the most were the goofiest, because here's an example would be somebody tells you about their career, their occupation, and they go through it, and it's more of a negative way. And then they said, one of the last questions is, if you could do this again, would you do that job? And they say yes. After they've answered 20 plus questions about how they despise their job, they say they do it again, which makes
right.
literally no sense. It's like, wait a sec, you've done the job for 8 years or 15 years, and you still would go back and do it even though you don't like it. So it just, I mean, so you never know. So everything's all over the map. And I always tell the students, because they see the book and they see it, it's it's a large book, but I always tell them, I go, pick and choose. I go, you don't have to read every career, just pick out the ones that interest you, and then put the book down and come back to it another day. Because there's some careers in there that will interest you and some won't. You know what I mean? If you're not, I mean, like
Yeah.
some manual labor jobs might interest some people that want to do that, and other ones that, that don't want to get into, the white collar jobs, they call them, or technology jobs or something to that nature. So yeah, it's all over the map, but I try to make sure that, it's clear and concise, and give people good ideas and suggestions.
Exactly. No, that's perfect. And I like that you said that clear and concise, because you can't just have a story that rambles on and tells every part of the person's life. You got to focus on the main points, but while also keeping it engaging. So it's a delicate balance, actually, now that you think about it. And I guess that's why the editing process is so crucial. It's great to know that you did work with such a team. What was that collaboration process like then? I mean, you mentioned it a little bit, but with so many working pieces, the people who wrote the questionnaires, the editors, and you, were there any surprises or conflicts along the road that you ended up encountering?
Yeah. Okay. On the book process, sure.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Book one versus book two. So
Hmm.
with book one, you got to understand is I've never written books, so I have no idea what I'm getting myself into.
Of course.
And so, because of connections, I got connected to my publisher called Wise Inc. And they were really cool. They're out of Minneapolis and all like that. And so I talked to them about, the process, and it was a lot more than I thought, especially the
Mhm.
editing parts. And the couple things that are the pros and the cons were, first, there's two parts of the book. There's the intro and the conclusion, which is about how I should have prepared myself for the real world. And then there's the 101 careers. And so in the first 101 careers, we were debating about the numbers 50, 60, 70, whatever. And with the editor. And then I just like, you know what? How about 101 for like, English 101, math 101. So that's what they came up with the idea of 101, and let the cat out of the bag. The next one's gonna be 102. But in the intro and the conclusion, we had to do a lot of, rewrites back and forth. They wanted to make it more linear, more organized because I was kind of all over the map. So they give you to like editor A, and I'd work with that person, it worked out. But sometimes the editors and you can bump heads, and it's not a joy, especially when somebody tries to take your voice out. Okay, like a couple things that really irked me. And because of the next book, and I'm going to the same publisher, I told them about that. And the examples were editing jokes. Okay, so I try to put jokes in the book to have fun, because when people read, I'm always amazed at some of the books, because I read a lot of career readiness books. A lot of them are very dry, and you want to have some type of fun. You want to, have some jokes and have, make it back and forth. And they rewrite the jokes, and I'm like, one, you don't know how to write a joke, and then two, you're not funny, so don't do it. So that was irritating. Another thing too was, I'll quote fun people as well throughout the book. Like I quote JFK, right? Big name. MLK, big name. Axl Rose I quoted, and one of the editors writes, Axl Rose sings, and I go, he doesn't sing, he screams. I'm like, really? I mean, you're taking it that making it that boring. I mean, so I try to make, really involved about how people within the book act and talk, and the mannerisms versus just basic dull words. It's like, yeah, sure. Does he sing? Sure. But I mean, a hard rock guy? No, they scream and yell. I mean, so I got like even Henry Rollins, I have him in there too, and I forget what the terminology I used for him was, but you can't make it so it's just so bland, because who wants to read that book?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So that's why you kind of have to add in something to spruce it up a little bit throughout the way. But I really appreciate you kind of sharing those stories with us and giving us a little bit of a sneak peek of what to be expected when we pick up the book, both of the books. So that being said, I'm wondering where exactly people go if they want to connect with you and get in touch and learn a little bit more about these books and the process. I think you have a whole website, Careers by the People. Is that correct?
Yeah, I got a few things that the Careers by the People is the main site where they can, read more about the book. They can see the endorsements, they can see the blogs, they can see where I've spoken, what I do. They also have an excerpt of the book there. Another one too is YouTube. I have a YouTube channel called, shockingly, Careers by the People. And so I've done over 100+ videos about career readiness. So that's my whole, so it's, some of the things will tie into the book. Some of the videos will be about books I've read on careers, like What Color's Your Parachute from Dickie Bowles and all like that. So I make my commentary from there. And so between the two, I mean, people can get a ton of information about
Mm,
careers and career readiness. So I do that. But the other thing to remember, I speak at college. It's high
of
schools,
course.
colleges, trade schools, wherever organizations, whatever it takes to get the word out. I'm trying to, work with as many people out there as possible to try to help, because I mean, if people saw what I saw when I go and speak to the schools, and I'm not talking the elite are doing fine. But when I talk to these secondary, community colleges types, these secondary schools out there that aren't highly ranked, it's amazing, because I can speak at a major college, a top tiered elite top 50, and 95% of the students are on LinkedIn, or, have done an internship or preparing for one. Whereas I speak to a lower end school, it's like 5 to 6% are on LinkedIn, and they're not doing anything related to any type of career. So there's this massive divide in America, and I'm just trying to do my best to try to, resolve some of the
Yeah.
issues and
Bridge
help
that
bridge
gap.
these
Yeah.
gaps. Yeah, we got some serious problems, but I mean, somebody's going to scream about it, right? So,
Yeah, well,
yeah.
it's good that you're spreading the message and getting it out there because that's the only way change could happen is if you're, you know, spreading the word and sharing the stories of others as you have in your book, and people can learn from example. So it's perfect. Very enlightening too.
Yeah.
That being said, I'm wondering if you happen to have any writing tips for the audience today, anything that you found useful during your process that others can potentially benefit from.
Oh God, sure, sure. Well, I'm always willing to help when it comes to the writing process, because what I try to do is, I mean, I'm probably not politically correct, but I try to write fat, so my whole goal is write as much as you possibly can that's in your head and make sure it's written down. Don't say, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. No, do it. Write it
Do
down.
it, yeah.
I don't care how ugly it is that you write, but write it down, and then put it away. Maybe tomorrow, the next day, or in 3 hours, you can go back to it and clean it up. Because some of the things I've found is I've done, and you always want to keep multiple drafts of it too, because you never know. What if you write something great, and then you want to clean it up, and then you're like, wait a sec, it was actually pretty good, so I can go back to it. But I usually try to write more and as much as I possibly can about subjects until I start cleaning up. So what happens with me is when I do like the writing the books are, it's just like the ideas and the things that I just flowed. It takes a lot of time, and I write notes over years. So my third book right now, I mean, I've been putting note every time something pops in my head. I write it down. I put it into book 3. What's going to happen there? On book 2, the same thing occurred. Was what are the questions to ask the students, but also what is book 3 going to be about, and how is it going to be enjoyable? So I tell stories from what happened from book 1 to book 2, what I learned when I was out there speaking. I mean, and how can I extrapolate that data and information and put it into the second book to help educate the audience about what's going on, or as the educators. And so, yeah, so I constantly make sure people write things down, make sure, they're on top of their genre or whatever. They're doing as much reading as possible in their genre. But the fact is, they're saving what they're writing down, per dates and times, because they can always go back. If you once delete something, you're going to lose it. But if you can keep going and writing and improving, it's going to help. But yeah, I always tell people, like, oh, just, you know what, you don't have to go to Columbia and, be an amazing writer and blah, 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 blah. Go out and just do it. And I always tell the students, by the way, I go, get published. I go, don't go write a book like me. You go nuts. But get published on an online magazine, the local newspaper, anything out there, because it changes you. It's part of actually the professional soft skills world. It will change you on your resume and on your LinkedIn. So you're separating yourself from the other person out there that hasn't been published. And it differentiates you, but also shows you that you can actually accomplish and get something done. So I always tell people, just find your little niches in your world and just go out there and conquer it. But it always is a joy, like that, because one of my jokes is when I was interviewing in technology, like, how many technology sales guys get published? It's like it was
True,
me.
yeah.
Yeah, nobody does. So I remember interviewing with this one manager I got hired for. They go, "Oh yeah, I see you've been published." It was in tech magazine, so it equated to the position. I go, published 4 times. So I would be in like I'd write the trade rags, and I'd be like, "Hey, guys, this is all tech weenie stuff." I go, "You want to hear from a salesperson?" And the response always was, "Oh yeah, without question. We want to hear what your side of the coin is." And so yeah, we get published. And the cool thing too is, I remember back then I got a couple $100 here and there in the mail. I'm like, wow, I didn't think I was getting paid for this. So that was actually kind of fun too. But it's always good. It's going to separate you from everybody else if you're in industry and you can write. So yeah.
Perfect. Well, I really appreciate you sharing those insights with us. It's clear that you know what you're doing. You've been around the bend, and now all people can do is put their best foot forward and learn from what you put out there. So thank you so much for coming on today and sharing with us. And guys, if you're listening today, whether you're a student or a writer or an educator, I mean, Careers by the People is perfect, an essential read, because it's real talk from real people, and put together so nicely by Mike. So thank you for sharing everything about this, Mike. And we're going to put the links to all of your sites on the show notes today, so that if everybody's interested, you can click on over, get to know, get involved, and get connected. So thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Danielle. It's been a joy and a pleasure too. And thank you for all the great questions. And thank you for doing what you're doing to help the writers and the authors out there in the world. So
And thank you too. I mean, you're doing a tremendous amount for people in the careers that they're in, and helping them figure out what's the best move for them to make. So perfect stuff. And guys, if you're listening and this conversation resonated with you, I mean, again, check out the materials. Also check out some more of our Authors on Mission podcasts. And if you're inspired to write your own book based on this conversation, well, we have all the resources to help you also. So head over to authorsonmission.com. And well, until next time, everybody, keep writing, keep creating, and keep pursuing your mission. We'll see you next time on the Authors on Mission podcast.
That's a wrap on another episode of the Authority on Demand podcast. If today's conversation sparked something in you, don't keep it to yourself. share this episode with a founder or leader who's ready to stop being the best kept secret in their industry. If you want to turn your expertise into inbound demand, head to authorityondemand.com to see how we help clients go from unknown to in demand. I'm Danielle Hutchinson, and I'll catch you on the next one. Now, go build some authority.